I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Vietnam Veterans News Podcast. News of interest about Vietnam veterans from a Vietnam veteran. Now, here's your host, Mac Payne.
This is Mac Payne here with episode 1814 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. News about the Vietnam War and the brave veterans who served there, as told to you by yours truly, a Vietnam veteran. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about a wonderful thing a high school history teacher up in Chesapeake, Virginia, did a few years ago, and the tremendous results of the class project that he started. His name is Craig Blackman. Before I tell you about what Craig did that was so wonderful, I'd like you to listen to my good buddy Willie Thomas tell you about a wonderful deal that is available to you right now. Take it away, Willie.
This episode is brought to you by Legacy Staffs, which are crafted by the Brazos Walking Stick Company in Waco, Texas. You can go to brazosticks.com and use the name Mac Payne, one word, at the checkout and get 10% off your next order of the Legacy Staff or cane of your own design.
Thank you very much, Willie. I highly encourage you to take advantage of the deal Willie told you about. Go to brazosticks.com and get that 10% discount off of your personalized Legacy Staff. Do it today. I guarantee you'll be glad you did. Back in 2013, Craig Blackman did a wonderful thing. He gave his U.S. history class a project that turned out to do some wonderful things, especially for a number of Gold Star families. One of the members of the Gold Star families that was in his class projects group was deeply affected by this project. This person was Allan Midgett. She lives down in Manteo, North Carolina. That's only about 80 miles from Chesapeake. She was easily able to go up to the events they held honoring these Vietnam veterans. They wrote a story about this project in the local paper down there in Manteo, North Carolina, the Coastland Times. The title of it is Class Project Turns to Closure for Gold Star Families Who Lost Vietnam Veterans. The story was written by Danielle Puleo. If you are not familiar with the location of Manteo, North Carolina, it sits right there on Roanoke Island, not too far from where the Wright brothers made that first flight at Kitty Hawk. Roanoke Island is also fairly well known for something that happened way back in 1587. If you are a student of U.S. history like I am, then you are well aware that in that year, 115 English settlers were trying to make a go of it. They landed there and was trying to get things going. It got a little tough there, so the head man of that colony, they called him the governor, Mr. John White, said, "Y'all stay here. I'm going back to England to bring some more supplies over here." He got on the boat, headed back to England. Unfortunately, when he got there, there was a war going on between England and one of the other European countries. They seem to have regular wars down through the years. That delayed his return to the settlement there on Roanoke Island. He didn't get back until 1590. If you remember, he left his wife there and the firstborn English baby named Virginia Dare. He was very anxious to get back and see his daughter, who by that time would be almost 3 years old. Sadly, when he got back, he could not find hide nor hair of any of the 115 settlers. To this day, nobody knows what happened to him. This is a personal note. For that reason, I'd be a little nervous hanging around Roanoke Island or Manteo. Some of the ghosts of those 115 settlers might still be there. But that's just me. Manteo is a wonderful place. This story I'm going to share with you is going to warm your heart. If it does not warm your heart, you've got a hard one, and I advise you to soften it up a little bit. Without any further ado, let's take a look at this class project up in a Chesapeake, Virginia high school that turned out to be something wonderful. Again, the title of it is Class Project Turns to Closure for Gold Star Families Who Lost Vietnam Veterans. Dateline, Manteo, North Carolina. When high school teacher Craig Blackman presented his idea for a class project 7 years ago, he had no idea how many lives it would touch. Blackman has taught U.S. history at Indian River High School in Chesapeake, Virginia since 1987. In 2013, Blackman thought of a unique class project intended to honor 25 veterans who died in the Vietnam War. It all started in the fall of the year, Blackman told the Coastal Times, and I gave every pair of students in the class one veteran. The goal was to have his students use the Vietnam War archives housed at Texas Tech University out in Lubbock, Texas, to write an essay about each of the veterans assigned. To develop important historical thinking skills, the students were required to provide appropriate military context for each soldier. I wanted something personalized that would bring history to life for the students while also doing something special to honor the Gold Star families. Blackman had each pair of students also interview those families to gather evidence for their essays. It was a tremendous thing to see the students connect with these families. It was intergenerational learning. By the beginning of May that year, the students were able to connect with 24 of the 25 families. It was truly a miracle, Blackman said. The families were then invited to a commemorative ceremony in honor of their sons. The city of Chesapeake ended up partnering with the school and agreed to pay for name pavers honoring each veteran on Memorial Day in 2014. We had the families walking where the city had memorialized their sons. The students walked with them. Blackman reminisced on how special it was to see his students honoring the families. He was not the only one touched by the event. Every family member who was able to partake took away something special from that day. One family in particular has their roots in the Outer Banks. Allan Midgett decided when he was 17 years old that he was going to enlist in the Army. His heritage traced back to a long line of men who served with the Coast Guard. His sister Diane Midgett shared his story with the Coastal Times. We had a very military family, a family of service. For Allan to want to go into the military and fight a war was understandable, Diane said. She shared that Allan had gone over to Vietnam to serve for 18 months and received an honorable discharge. However, he re-enlisted the next day. According to Diane, Allan told his father, "You know, Pop, at the age of 19, I've been over here and feel like I am a seasoned veteran. Every day I have to watch young greenies get off helicopters. If I stay, that's one less that has to come over here." I think if I'd have been the father, I would have given him some strong advice to come home, boy. You've been over there a year and a half. Let somebody else serve. He might have done that. It doesn't tell us in this story. Continuing, Allan had learned to speak Vietnamese and was rumored to have started dating a young woman in Vietnam during his time. Shortly after re-enlisting, sadly, Diane said Allan was declared MIA. That means missing in action. That is not good news for you to be an infantryman in South Vietnam and be captured by the enemy. They didn't have facilities down there to hold prisoners generally, so in most cases, they were done away with. Continuing, "It was so hard on my parents," she said. "That teacher and those kids did so much research, they were able to come back and tell us things we didn't even know about Allan." Blackman had deciphered Allan's letters he sent home to his family. Instead of traveling to the wall in Washington, D.C. to see Allan's name, Diane said she and her sister were now able to travel across the state line to Chesapeake, which is only about 80 miles north of Manteo, and look at the memorialized name of their brother. In addition, after the project ended, Diane was able to meet some of those who had served with Allan. They shared stories of their time with him in Vietnam, and for the first time, Diane said she was able to receive some closure. "We just want to know those simple things," she said. "Few will talk, but some will, and the stories have been able to be shared with me." After becoming invested in finding out what happened to Allan, Diane has learned more than she ever did before. She is currently trying to see if Allan was buried at a particular cemetery in Vietnam after hearing accounts from his war buddies. Now that's going to be a real challenge for her. I hope she finds his remains. Continuing with the story. The Midgett family name has rung in the Outer Banks for centuries. In Blackman's book, which is based on his 2013 AP U.S. History project and the events that unfolded afterwards, he speaks to Allan's story, the research that was done about his time in Vietnam, and his legacy. Having Craig write this book and the amazing ceremony at City Hall, I can't tell you how moving and how much that has meant to me, Diane said. It was a difficult story, but I want people to remember Allan Midgett's courage and many sacrifices, Blackman said. Blackman's book, The Long Journey Home, has been added to the Vietnam Veteran News podcast recommended reading list. I encourage you to go over to the podcast website, VietnamVeteranNews.com. Look at episode 1814, and there you will see a picture of the book cover and a place where you can buy it and be reading it in no time. Blackman's book, The Long Journey Home, The Untold Stories of Forgotten Soldiers, is on sale in local bookstores. Blackman said the Downtown Book is considering having a signing for him at their shop. Most importantly, he is excited to bring the stories of these forgotten soldiers to local homes so their names may live on forever in history. Craig Blackman, speaking on behalf of all Vietnam veterans, I'm sure, I appreciate greatly the work you did as a history teacher up there in Chesapeake, Virginia, and the book that you wrote about Vietnam veterans. I am so impressed. I am hereby issuing you an official Vietnam Veteran News podcast salute. Thank you so much for writing that book. I appreciate it all. By the way, while you are over there at the podcast website, VietnamVeteranNews.com, at episode 1814, putting in your order for a copy of Craig Blackman's book, The Long Journey Home, please take a look at the picture of Allan Midgett in Vietnam in 1966. You can tell he was there in the early days because he is still wearing rank insignia on his sleeve. Not long after this picture was taken, they changed the rules over there, and everybody wore small metal rank insignia on their collars. I think the main reason they did that was because everybody rolled their sleeves up over there, and when you roll up your sleeves, you could not tell if a person was a sergeant, staff sergeant, sergeant first class, master sergeant, sergeant major. So the Army could not have that. They moved up to the small rank insignia that went on the collar. Take a look at that picture and you'll see some history. Craig Blackman, thank you very much for that project. It did a lot of good for a lot of people, and it helped people remember our Vietnam veterans, especially those who did not come home, and it also helps the Gold Star families feel just a little bit better, knowing that people care about them and their losses. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. This is Mac Payne closing out episode 1814 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You are cordially invited to return again soon and often to listen to more that will be coming your way on this podcast, the Vietnam Veteran News.
How about that? Ain't that a mess?